The city of Orion was alive with noise and lights. Hover cars moved between glass towers, and the smell of street food mixed with the clean air pumped through the city domes. In the middle of this great place stood a famous restaurant called the Silver Plate. It was known for serving both humans and aliens in comfort. The building had smooth silver walls, blue light strips on the edges, and wide windows that showed the busy streets outside. Inside, soft music played, and waiters moved quickly between tables carrying plates that floated slightly above their trays. That evening, a man named Marcus walked through the front doors. He looked calm and tired after a long journey through the star routes. He wore a simple gray jacket, dark pants, and boots that showed dust from travel. To anyone looking, he seemed like a normal visitor from one of the smaller planets. Nobody knew that he was the silent owner of the restaurant chain that included the Silver Plate. He had come quietly to see how the place worked under its current manager before making any public announcement. Marcus had built his fortune through hard work and strong ideas. He came from a small colony where food was scarce, and people helped each other survive the storms of their world. When he grew older, he studied business and leadership, always remembering how people should be treated with respect. He never forgot what it felt like to be ignored or judged by how he looked. So now, when he owned dozens of restaurants across the system, he wanted to make sure that his workers treated everyone fairly. The Silver Plate was supposed to be one of his best, but Marcus had received quiet messages from some customers and workers saying that the manager, a man named Rolf, was not kind. They said he treated rich guests with smiles and poor travelers with cold words. Marcus did not want to believe it without seeing it himself. That was why he had arrived without any escort, without his name badge, and without telling anyone who he was. As Marcus entered, a small droid moved near the door to scan his identification tag. The screen flashed green and the droid spoke in a polite voice welcoming him. The sound was soft, but behind the counter Rolf was watching. Rolf was tall, his uniform neat, and his face carried a look that always tried to appear serious. He had worked at the restaurant for years and believed that image mattered more than kindness. When he saw Marcus's plain clothes, he frowned slightly. Marcus walked to the counter and smiled. "Table for one, please," he said in a calm tone. Rolf looked at him from head to toe. His voice was short. "We are busy tonight. You can wait near the back corner until something opens up." Marcus nodded politely. "That is fine. I can wait." Rolf did not smile. He pointed toward a small seat near the corner and turned to speak with another guest wearing a fine suit. The difference in tone was clear. Marcus watched quietly, not showing any anger. He had met people like Rolf before in his life. Some learned to change when taught the right lesson, and some never did. Marcus sat down and watched the restaurant. The air smelled of roasted spices and warm bread. The waiters moved quickly, their shoes making soft sounds on the floor. Some smiled when passing by, but others seemed afraid to stop near him. Perhaps they were told that certain guests were not important. After some time, a young waiter came to his table. The waiter's name tag said Leno. He looked nervous. "Sir, sorry for the wait. Can I take your order?" Marcus smiled kindly. "No problem, Leno. I will have a bowl of the house stew and a glass of water." Leno nodded, writing it on his pad. He gave a small smile back, grateful for Marcus's calmness. "It will be ready soon," he said before walking off. As Marcus waited, he observed more. Rolf moved from table to table, greeting some guests with charm and ignoring others. Whenever a wealthy-looking alien entered, Rolf would personally walk them to their seats. But when a tired worker came in wearing a mining suit, he would send a waiter to deal with them instead. Marcus watched quietly. He saw a family with 2 children sitting near the window. They were not dressed richly, but they looked happy. When they asked for an extra napkin, Rolf passed them by as if they did not exist. Marcus felt a small sting of disappointment. This was his place. It was meant to welcome everyone, not separate them. His meal arrived after a long wait. The stew was warm but not fresh, and the bread was a little cold. Marcus took a few bites without complaint. The food was fine, but the spirit behind it was missing. Restaurants were not only about flavor, they were about care. The way food was served showed how much the people behind it respected their guests. As he ate, 2 men at another table whispered. One said, "That manager only cares when someone walks in wearing expensive clothes. He ignored me last week when I came after work." The other nodded. "He did the same to my cousin. This place changed since the last owner disappeared. Marcus heard those words and made a mental note. He had disappeared only to test his chain's honesty, but now he saw the truth. When Marcus finished eating, he looked around for Leno but found that Rolf was now standing near the counter again. Marcus stood up and walked over. He placed a few credits on the counter and waited for his change. Rolf did not look up. He was checking something on his data pad. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely. "Can I get my change, please?" Rolf sighed as if disturbed. He opened the drawer, counted the coins without care, and instead of handing them to Marcus, he let them fall to the floor beside him. The sound of coins hitting the tiles echoed softly, but everyone near heard it. For a moment, nobody moved. The waiter Leno looked frozen. A few customers turned their heads to see what happened. Rolf smirked slightly, pretending it was an accident, but he did not say sorry. Marcus looked at the coins scattered on the floor. He bent down slowly, picked them up one by one, and placed them back in his hand. His face stayed calm. There was no anger in his voice. He stood straight, met Rolf's eyes, and said, "Thank you." Rolf said nothing. He turned back to his data pad as if nothing had happened. Marcus walked to the door. The soft sound of his boots echoed across the floor. Everyone watched him leave. Leno looked down, ashamed that he had not spoken up. The two men at the other table shook their heads in disbelief. When Marcus stepped outside, the night air of Orion City touched his face. He looked up at the glowing towers above. He had come here to test the heart of his business, and now he had seen what needed to be fixed. His company had grown large, and with size came distance. Some people forgot what made them human. He stood near the walkway, watching hover cars pass. His reflection in the glass wall beside him showed not just a tired traveler, but a man carrying the weight of a vision. He thought about the workers who wanted to do right but were controlled by those who didn't care. He thought about how many customers might have been treated poorly in his name. The thought was heavy, but his resolve grew stronger. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a small communicator. He pressed a single key and the voice of his assistant came through. "Yes, sir. Do you wish to report something?" Marcus spoke firmly. "Tomorrow morning I want the executive team at the Silver Plate. No warnings, no press. I will meet them there myself." "Yes, sir." "Should I inform the manager?" Marcus looked back at the bright sign of the restaurant glowing above the door. "No, let him find out when I arrive." He ended the call and walked away down the shining street. The crowd of Orion City moved around him, unaware that one of its most powerful men had just been insulted in his own building. He smiled faintly to himself, not out of joy, but determination. This test had given him all the proof he needed. Behind him, the Silver Plate continued to serve customers, unaware that by tomorrow everything inside would change. Rolf still believed he had won a small moment of pride. He did not know that the man he had disrespected was his true employer, the one who paid his salary, the one who believed in fair treatment for all. As Marcus disappeared into the busy lights of Orion City, the sky above shimmered with the trails of ships leaving the port. He had seen the worst of pride and the power of silence. Now he was ready to remind his people what respect truly meant, not through anger but through example. The night passed slowly for Marcus. He sat in his small hotel room near the spaceport, looking out through the wide glass window. The city lights below looked beautiful but distant. Hover cars moved like fireflies between the towers, and airships crossed above the domes of Orion City. He kept thinking about what had happened in the Silver Plate. He was not angry. Anger never helped anyone grow. What he felt was disappointment. The restaurant that once stood for kindness had become a place where pride walked louder than respect. Marcus had worked for many years to build his company. He started from nothing, washing dishes in small kitchens on colony worlds. He had seen good managers and bad ones. The good ones treated everyone as part of a team. The bad ones treated power as a shield to hide their weakness. Rolf reminded him of those who forgot that every guest deserved care. The next morning, Marcus rose early. He prepared his plan with calm steps. He sent a few coded messages through his communicator to his company's central office. His team knew that when he sent a silent alert, it meant he had discovered a problem that needed personal attention. Within an hour, his assistants confirmed that his arrival would be arranged quietly. Marcus wanted no media, no announcement, only truth. While his team made preparations, life at the Silver Plate continued as normal. Rolf arrived late that morning, as he often did. He wore his clean silver uniform with a proud look. His hair was combed back and his shoes shined. He believed his strictness kept the restaurant's standard high. To him, every customer had to look rich or important to deserve a smile. Anyone else was just a burden on his time. Inside the restaurant, the staff worked silently. Waiters moved quickly but without joy. The kitchen droids hummed softly as they cooked. Rolf's voice often rose above the clatter of plates. He scolded one of the waiters for serving water too slowly. He lectured another for not standing straight enough when greeting customers. To the guests, the place looked clean and organized, but the workers felt a quiet fear under the polished surface. Leno, the young waiter who had served Marcus the night before, kept thinking about what he saw. He still felt bad that he had not spoken when Rolf dropped the coins, but he was afraid of losing his job. He had a younger sister who needed medicine, and this job paid for it, so he stayed silent like many others. He hoped the man from last night had not taken the insult to heart. Rolf, on the other hand, did not even remember Marcus clearly. To him, it was just another small event. He had behaved like that before with other guests and saw no reason to feel guilty. In his mind, he believed he was maintaining order and quality. As the day moved forward, the lunch crowd filled the restaurant. The silver plate sparkled under the sunlight coming through the glass ceiling. Rolf stood at the entrance, greeting only those who looked wealthy. When a group of miners entered with dusty uniforms, he gave them a short nod and sent them to the back tables. He did not notice that one of his assistants was recording his actions quietly for the company's internal review. By early evening, a message arrived on Rolf's datapad. It was short and official. Prepare the staff for inspection tomorrow morning. Executive review scheduled. No delay will be accepted. Rolf frowned. He did not expect any inspection this week. He thought perhaps it was just a routine visit. He smiled slightly, believing he could impress the executives with his clean floors and perfect seating plans. He had no idea who was coming. Marcus spent the rest of the day preparing for his visit. He wanted to understand the full condition of the restaurant, not only the service but also the hearts of those who worked there. He read reports from his hidden monitors showing the staff's performance ratings. Many were good workers, but their scores had dropped recently. Customer satisfaction had fallen, especially from travelers who looked poor. The data matched what Marcus had seen with his own eyes. That evening, Marcus visited the nearby markets. He spoke with vendors who supplied the silver plate. Most of them respected the restaurant but said the manager was difficult to deal with. Some said he delayed payments, others said he demanded free samples in exchange for business. Marcus noted each detail carefully. It was clear that Rolf's pride had grown too large. The next morning came bright and clear. The air inside Orion City was cool and sunlight touched the glass towers. Marcus arrived at the silver plate in a black hover car marked with his company's crest. 4 of his executive officers followed him. They were dressed in neat uniforms with silver collars showing their rank. When the car stopped, people outside turned to look. The restaurant staff gathered near the door, whispering among themselves. Rolf stood at the entrance, his heart beating fast. He tried to stay calm, thinking this must be a routine check. When the door opened and Marcus stepped out, Rolf's face lost color. He recognized him immediately. The same man he had insulted was now walking toward him wearing a coat with the company's insignia shining on the chest. Marcus walked with quiet confidence. His face was calm, but his eyes were steady. He stopped in front of Rolf and greeted him politely. "Good morning, Manager Rolf." Rolf swallowed hard. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to the silver plate. I did not know you were coming." Marcus nodded. "I wanted to see the place with my own eyes. I hope that is not a problem." Rolf forced a smile. "Of course not, sir. It is an honor. If you had told me earlier, I would have prepared better." Marcus looked around the lobby. The lights were bright, the tables were clean, and the waiters stood still in shock. "No need for special preparation," Marcus said. "I wanted to see things as they really are." The air inside the restaurant felt heavy. The staff could sense that something important was about to happen. Marcus walked slowly through the dining area, his eyes observing every corner. He looked at the same spot where he had sat 2 nights ago. He noticed the small scratches on the floor where the coins had fallen. He turned toward Rolf and asked, "How long have you worked here?" Rolf straightened his back. 7 years, sir. I have kept this place in top order. Our service is among the best in the district." Marcus nodded slowly. I see, and how do you decide who receives the best service? Rolf looked confused. I treat all customers according to their presentation, sir. First impressions matter in business. Marcus raised his eyebrows slightly. Presentation? You mean how they look? Rolf gave a nervous laugh. Yes, sir. It helps keep the restaurant's image strong. Marcus looked toward the staff. Many avoided eye contact, but their silence spoke clearly. He then looked back at Rolf. Tell me, manager, do you remember serving a man who wore a gray jacket and asked politely for his change? Rolf froze. His mind went blank. He tried to find words but failed. The color drained from his face. Marcus's tone remained calm. You dropped his coins on the floor, did you not? The silence in the restaurant was deep. Leno lowered his head, afraid to move. Rolf tried to speak. Sir, that was a misunderstanding. The coin slipped from my hand. Marcus looked straight at him. I was that man. The words hit the room like thunder. The staff gasped. Rolf stepped back slightly, his mouth open. He looked around for support, but no one spoke. Marcus continued in the same calm tone. I came here in simple clothes because I wanted to see how my restaurant treated its guests. I found my answer. He walked to the nearest table and placed his hand on the smooth surface. A restaurant is not judged by how it treats the rich. It is judged by how it treats the ordinary. Every person who walks through this door pays with the same credits and they deserve the same respect. Rolf could not speak. His pride was gone. His hands shook slightly as he tried to explain himself. Sir, I was only trying to keep the image of the place. I did not mean any harm. Marcus turned to his executives. Please note his words. Image over humanity, that is how problems begin. He then faced the staff. I do not blame those who were afraid to speak. Fear grows when bad leadership takes root. That ends today. The staff stood silent, some with tears in their eyes. Leno finally stepped forward. Sir, may I speak? Marcus nodded. Go ahead, Leno said. He is strict, sir. We wanted to do good work, but we were always afraid of him. I saw what he did that night and I should have spoken. I am sorry I did not. Marcus gave him a kind look.
You have spoken now, and that is what matters.
Change begins when truth is spoken. He turned back to Rolf. Tomorrow you will attend a full review meeting. Until then, you are suspended from management duties. You will stay and observe while we rebuild this place the right way. Rolf lowered his head. He had no words left. Marcus walked toward the window and looked out at the busy street. This restaurant was meant to represent unity among worlds. But unity begins with one thing, respect. Without it, no amount of silver walls or fine lights can make this place shine. He turned back to the staff. Today we begin again. Everyone here will have the chance to grow. Those who show kindness will rise. Those who believe power is pride will fall. The workers nodded quietly. A new sense of hope began to fill the room. As Marcus prepared to leave, he looked once more at Rolf and said gently, Learn from this. Pride can break a man faster than failure. Respect can build him again. Marcus stepped outside into the bright morning light, leaving behind silence and reflection. Inside, the staff felt that a storm had passed, but a new dawn was coming. The Silver Plate was no longer just a restaurant. Morning came with a soft glow over Orion City. The twin suns rose behind the glass towers, their light shining through the domed sky. The streets filled with the sound of air shuttles and voices from every race in the galaxy. At the center of it all, the Silver Plate stood tall, its silver walls reflecting the light like a mirror. Inside, the staff moved quietly, waiting for Marcus to return. After the inspection the day before, everyone in the restaurant had felt a deep change. The staff had seen a side of Marcus that surprised them. He was calm and respectful, even though he had been insulted. He did not raise his voice or act with anger. Instead, he spoke with truth and kindness that cut deeper than any harsh word. It made everyone think about what kind of people they wanted to be. Rolf came in early that day. His eyes looked tired and his face showed that he had not slept well. He stood in front of the mirror inside his office, staring at his reflection. The proud look he once carried was gone. He remembered the moment Marcus revealed his true identity, and his stomach still turned when he thought about it. He could not forget the calm voice that said, I was that man. Those words echoed in his mind. He sat down at his desk holding his old employee badge. For the first time in years, he felt unsure of himself. He had built his life on rules and control, believing that respect came from power. Now that belief felt empty. He knew that Marcus could have fired him on the spot, yet the man had given him a chance to learn. That act of mercy burned inside him more than any punishment would. Outside the office, Lino and the other waiters were cleaning tables. The atmosphere was strange, but hopeful. They whispered about what might happen next. Some feared the restaurant would close for good, while others believed Marcus would rebuild it into something greater. Leno looked toward the door every few minutes, waiting for the moment when Marcus would return. At exactly 10 in the morning, a convoy of black hover cars stopped in front of the Silver Plate. The company's silver crest glowed softly on their sides. The doors opened, and Marcus stepped out, followed by his assistant, a woman named Mira, and 2 senior supervisors. The crowd outside stopped to stare. Customers waiting for breakfast moved aside, whispering among themselves. Marcus entered the restaurant without any sign of pride or anger. He smiled slightly as he greeted the staff. "Good morning, everyone." The employees straightened up immediately. Leno and the other waiters stood in a line near the counter. Rolf came out of his office, nervous but ready to face whatever was coming. Marcus looked around the restaurant, then nodded to Mira. "Let us begin the meeting." Mira opened her tablet and started listing names of employees. "Each of you will speak honestly today," she said. "You will tell us what works, what fails, and what you want to change. There will be no punishment for truth." The staff exchanged glances. No one had ever asked for their opinion before. Under Rolf, they were told only to listen, not to speak. Now, things felt different. Marcus sat at a table near the center and listened. One by one, the workers came forward. A chef named Turo said the kitchen machines were outdated and often made mistakes, but Rolf refused to replace them to save money. A cleaner named Bia said that Rolf cut her hours when business was slow but never reduced his own bonuses. Leno spoke last. He admitted how fearful everyone felt under the manager's rule. Marcus took notes quietly, his face calm. When they finished, he looked at Rolf. "Would you like to respond?" Rolf stood still for a moment, his voice low. "They are right, sir. I failed them. I thought strict control would make them respect me, but all it did was make them afraid. I believed I was protecting the image of the restaurant, but I see now that I was protecting my own pride." Marcus nodded slowly. "It takes courage to admit that." He turned toward the staff. "You see, leadership is not about standing above others. It is about standing with them. I built this company so that everyone, from the cleaner to the cook, could work with dignity. Somewhere along the way, we lost that purpose." He stood up and looked around the room. "That ends today. From this moment, the Silver Plate will change, not just in service, but in heart." Mira projected a holographic display showing new company policies. The first one read, "Equal Respect Policy." Marcus explained, "From now on, every guest, no matter their clothes, species, or background, will receive the same service. There will be no ranking of people based on appearance or wealth." The second policy read, "Employee Growth Program." Marcus continued, "Every worker here will have a chance to learn management, cooking, or business if they wish. We rise together, or we fall together." The staff listened with growing excitement. It felt like a new beginning. Marcus then turned back to Rolf. "As for you, Manager Rolf, I have made my decision." The room fell silent. Everyone held their breath. "You will step down from your position," Marcus said firmly, "but you will not be dismissed. You will attend a leadership and empathy course at our company academy on Mars Station. If you complete it with honesty, you may return, but not as a manager. You will start as a floor worker, learning what true service feels like from the other side." Rolf nodded slowly. His voice shook slightly. "Thank you, sir. I will accept this chance." Marcus replied, "Good. Use it wisely." He then turned toward Leno. "You will take temporary charge of the floor under Mira's guidance. Show me what this place can become when led by kindness." Leno's eyes widened. "Me, sir? I am not sure I can lead." Marcus smiled gently. You do not need to be sure. You only need to care. The staff clapped softly. Some even smiled for the first time in months. The heavy atmosphere began to lift. After the meeting, Marcus stayed for lunch. He wanted to see how the team worked under the new mood. The difference was clear. Waiters moved with energy, chefs communicated openly, and even the droids worked in perfect rhythm. Customers began to notice the change too. One older woman said, "This place feels warmer today." Marcus heard her words and felt satisfied. While eating, he spoke quietly with Mira. "You see, Mira, people often think running a business is about profit, but it is really about trust. Once people lose faith in leadership, no amount of credits can fix it." Mira nodded. "You are right, sir. What you did today will stay in their hearts. They will never forget this lesson." Marcus finished his meal and stood up. He walked to the counter, placed his payment, and handed Leno a small chip. "This is a bonus for the staff. Divide it equally among everyone, including the kitchen workers." Leno's eyes widened again. "Thank you, sir." Marcus smiled. Remember, fairness is the soul of service. As Marcus prepared to leave, Rolf approached him one last time. His face was humble now, his eyes filled with regret. "Sir, may I say something?" Marcus nodded. "Go ahead." Rolf took a deep breath. "When I saw you walk in that first night, I judged you by your clothes. I thought you were someone unimportant. I was wrong. I treated you with disrespect, and for that, I am deeply sorry. I understand now that respect cannot be earned through fear. It must be given freely." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "It is never too late to learn. What matters is that you see your mistake and choose a better path." Rolf lowered his head. "I will not waste this second chance." Marcus looked around the restaurant one last time. The silver walls seemed brighter now. The laughter of customers filled the air again. The place that had once been cold and proud now felt alive with warmth. Before leaving, he spoke to the entire staff again. "Tomorrow, a full renovation team will arrive. This restaurant will close for 1 week. When it reopens, it will not just serve food, it will serve respect. Remember this day as the start of something greater. You are not just workers. You are builders of a new image for humanity among the stars." The staff cheered. Even the customers joined in with applause. The sound filled the air with hope. Marcus walked out into the bright street. The suns of Orion's city reflected on his coat. He stopped near his car and turned to look back at the silver plate. In his heart, he felt proud not of his wealth, but of the change he had started. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, but he had faith that his people could rise. Inside, Leno watched him leave. He felt inspired. He looked at the other waiters and said, "Let us make this place the best it can be." They nodded and went back to work with smiles. For the first time, the restaurant truly felt like a family. As the hover car lifted into the air, Marcus looked down at the shining building below. He remembered the coins that had fallen to the floor and how that simple moment had revealed so much about the world. He smiled quietly to himself. Sometimes the smallest insult could lead to the greatest change. The silver plate would soon become a symbol across the galaxy, not for its food alone, but for the lesson it carried about humanity, humility, and hope. Marcus leaned back in his seat as the car flew toward the horizon. The day had been long, but his spirit felt light. He had not just restored a restaurant, he had restored a vision of what humanity could be when it remembered to care. Marcus walked into the silver plate the next morning with calm steps. The sound of his shoes echoed softly on the clean floor as the staff stood in nervous silence. They had already heard what had happened, the story of how the man treated poorly. Last night turned out to be their new owner had spread quickly. Some looked scared, while others looked relieved that justice might finally arrive. The large dining area that usually buzzed with laughter and conversation now felt tense. The workers stood near the counter, whispering quietly. Rolf, the manager, stood stiff behind the counter, his face pale. He tried to keep a confident look, but his eyes betrayed his fear. Marcus stopped at the center of the room, his posture strong but his face calm. Behind him were two of his assistants, holding small tablets to record the meeting. Marcus turned, slowly, and said in a clear voice that he wanted everyone to sit. He didn't shout, but his tone was strong enough to make everyone listen. The employees sat on the chairs they usually reserved for guests. Marcus looked around, taking a deep breath. He said that he had built his business on respect, honesty, and hard work, and what he had seen the previous night had disappointed him deeply. He began by speaking to the entire staff. He told them that a business was more than a place to make money. It was a place where people came together, shared food, shared effort, and treated one another with fairness. He reminded them that every customer, no matter how they looked or what they wore, deserved kindness. Many of the workers nodded slowly, their eyes low. Some of them felt ashamed because they had stayed silent while Rolf had treated others poorly in the past. After that, Marcus called Rolf to stand in front of everyone. Rolf moved forward, his steps unsteady. The sound of his shoes against the floor was the only sound in the room. He stopped a few steps away from Marcus and looked down. Marcus asked him a simple question. He asked why Rolf had acted the way he did. Rolf hesitated. He tried to speak, but his voice trembled. He said he had been under pressure to keep the restaurant's reputation high. He said that he had tried to make the place look professional by giving more attention to the rich and important guests. He claimed that he thought he was protecting the image of the restaurant. Marcus listened quietly. When Rolf finished speaking, Marcus asked if he believed that respect should depend on how much money a person had. Rolf didn't answer. Marcus repeated the question in a softer tone, but his eyes remained fixed on him. After a long silence, Rolf shook his head and said no. Marcus then turned to everyone else and told them that this was the real lesson. He explained that leadership was not about control or power. Leadership was about service. A good leader makes people feel valued. A good leader builds trust. A good leader raises others instead of pushing them down. He walked toward the window and looked outside at the busy streets of Orion City. The morning sun shone on the glass, reflecting the movement of flying cars and glowing signs. He spoke while facing the window, saying that in a galaxy full of different beings, humans had to be an example of unity and respect. It was not strength that made humans special, but compassion. When he turned back to the room, Marcus's face was serious but calm. He told Rolf that his actions had hurt not only one person but the whole team. The staff had lost faith in their manager, and that had created fear. He said that fear never builds success. Only respect does. Marcus then announced that he was removing Rolf from his position as manager, effective immediately. The room stayed silent. Rolf looked down again, expecting harsh punishment, but Marcus was not finished. He said that he did not believe in destroying people's chances. He believed in rebuilding them. For that reason, Rolf would be sent to one of the company's training programs. There he would learn about equality, leadership, and how to treat workers and customers with kindness. If he completed the program successfully, he could return to work, but never again as a manager until he proved he had truly changed. This decision surprised everyone. Some staff expected Rolf to be fired on the spot, but Marcus's fairness made them respect him even more. He was strong, but fair. He wanted people to learn, not just to suffer. After the announcement, Marcus invited a few workers to speak about their experiences. One by one, they came forward. A young waiter named Lena said that she often saw customers being ignored when they looked poor or when they were from other planets. She said it made her feel sad because she wanted everyone to enjoy their time here. Another worker, Thomas, said that he had been scolded by Rolf for being too kind to a delivery worker who brought supplies every week. Rolf had told him that such people didn't deserve polite words. Marcus listened carefully to every story. He didn't interrupt. When they finished, he said that this behavior would end now. He promised to build a new culture where kindness was the rule, not the exception. He said that he would bring in professional trainers from his main company to teach customer service and teamwork. Every worker who showed effort and honesty would get a raise and better benefits. The staff began to feel hopeful. Many of them had been afraid to speak before, but now they felt safe. Marcus smiled gently and told them that they all had the power to make the silver plate a symbol of humanity's best values. He told them that when people from other planets entered this restaurant, they should see how humans treated one another with respect. That was what made the species strong and united. Marcus asked one of his assistants to hand him a small tablet. He showed the screen to everyone. It displayed a new code of conduct for the restaurant. Every worker would sign it to show their commitment to fairness, honesty, and service. The code was simple and easy to follow. It said that no one should be judged by appearance. Every guest must be treated equally, and teamwork must come before pride. When Rolf saw the code, he lowered his head. He realized that Marcus's words were not just about him. They were about everyone. He had let pride control him. But Marcus's calm leadership made him feel ashamed of his choices. He looked at Marcus and said that he was sorry for what he had done. His voice was weak, but his apology was honest. Marcus accepted it. He said that forgiveness was not about forgetting what happened, but learning from it. He hoped Rolf would take the opportunity to grow and become a better person. Rolf nodded silently. After the meeting ended, Marcus stayed behind while most of the staff returned to their duties. He walked slowly through the restaurant, touching the tables, looking at the decorations, and imagining what this place could become. He wanted it to be more than a restaurant. He wanted it to be a symbol, a place where everyone who walked in would feel respected and valued. He saw Lena cleaning the counter and stopped to talk to her. He asked her about her family, her work, and her ideas for improving the restaurant. She was surprised that the owner cared about her opinion, but she spoke honestly. She suggested adding a special discount for travelers who came from faraway colonies. Marcus smiled and told her it was a great idea. Later that day, Marcus met with his assistants in the office upstairs. The room had wide windows that overlooked the city. They discussed the training schedule, the renovation plan, and the marketing for the reopening. Marcus wanted the message to be clear. The silver plate was a place for everyone. He also asked them to include a message about kindness in the new advertisement. He said that a good restaurant feeds not only the body, but also the heart. When the meeting ended, Marcus stood by the window again. He could see the reflection of the restaurant below, where the staff was beginning to clean and rearrange things. The air already felt lighter, as if the tension of the previous day was slowly lifting away. That evening, as he walked out of the building, some workers waved to him. He waved back and smiled. He felt proud. The day had been hard, but it was worth it. He knew that real change took time, but it always began with one act of courage and one honest heart. Before leaving, Marcus looked back at the restaurant one more time. The lights were still on inside. He could see the workers talking to each other, laughing softly, and working as a team. That was the greatest reward. He whispered quietly that this was what humanity stood for: strength through respect and unity. And with that thought, he walked into the night of Orion City, ready to continue his mission of building a galaxy where every person, human or alien, could stand with pride and equality. The morning sun rose over Orion City, spreading a golden glow across the tall buildings and silver walkways. The air was fresh and the streets were alive with people rushing to work, traders shouting prices, and ships landing on distant platforms. At the center of the city stood the silver plate, now shining brighter than before. Its doors were decorated with clean glass, and a new sign above the entrance read, "The Silver Plate, a place for everyone." Marcus stood inside, watching as the final touches were made before reopening. Workers moved around with smiles, arranging tables and checking lights. The air smelled of fresh paint and warm bread from the kitchen. Marcus could feel the difference in the atmosphere. It was peaceful, full of hope. He walked around slowly, inspecting everything. He saw the young waiter Lena helping Thomas polish the counter. They were laughing softly as they worked. For the first time in many weeks, the team looked like a family. Marcus nodded to himself with quiet pride. This was the change he wanted. In one corner, a new training screen displayed short messages about respect, teamwork, and service. Each employee had signed the code of conduct. It wasn't just a rule anymore. It had become a promise. Marcus knew that promises built with honesty could last a lifetime. Soon guests started arriving. The door opened and the first customer stepped in, a tired traveler carrying a bag full of maps and tools. He looked around shyly, not sure if he belonged in such a fine place. But instead of being ignored, Lena walked up to him with a warm smile and greeted him kindly. She offered him a seat by the window and asked about his day. The traveler's face brightened at the kindness. Marcus stood nearby, quietly observing. He didn't need to say anything. The change spoke for itself. Every worker now treated every customer like a guest of honor. There was no judgment, no cold stares, no impatience, just genuine care. As the restaurant filled up, the sound of laughter and conversation filled the air again. A group of alien traders sat in one corner, enjoying a human dish for the first time. A family of space engineers sat at another table, their children smiling as they watched the city through the window. The restaurant had become alive again, but in a better way. Marcus took a seat near the counter. One of his assistants approached him with a small tablet. She showed him the first customer ratings coming in through the city network. Every message spoke of friendly staff and fair service. Some guests even mentioned how welcome they felt. Marcus smiled gently. He had always believed that success came from kindness, and now he was seeing it happen in real time. After an hour, a familiar name appeared on the list of visitors. Rolf, the former manager. He had sent a message asking if he could meet Marcus that day. Marcus paused for a moment, then nodded. He told the assistant to allow Rolf to come. Half an hour later, Rolf entered the restaurant. He looked different. His posture was humbler, his eyes softer. He wore a plain gray suit, and in his hands he held a small envelope. Marcus stood up to greet him. The room went quiet for a moment. Some of the staff froze, remembering the man who used to scold them, but Marcus waved his hand gently, signaling that everything was fine. Rolf walked up to him and bowed slightly. He said that he had finished the training program and had learned more about leadership and respect than he had in his entire career. He said that he understood now that pride and judgment had no place in service. He handed Marcus the envelope, which contained his final report from the training center and a handwritten note of apology. Marcus took the envelope and read the note. It was short but honest. Rolf wrote that he was truly sorry for his behavior and thanked Marcus for giving him another chance instead of throwing him away. Marcus looked up at him and smiled faintly. He said that people make mistakes, but strength comes from facing them and learning. Rolf nodded and said that he didn't expect to return as a manager. He only came to thank Marcus and to wish the restaurant success. Marcus appreciated his words. Then, in a calm voice, he told Rolf that he had a small position open in the supply department at another branch. It wasn't a high position, but it was a chance to rebuild trust. Rolf's eyes widened with surprise. He agreed immediately, thanking Marcus again and again. When Rolf left, the staff looked at Marcus with admiration. They saw that he wasn't just a rich owner. He was a man of character. He didn't punish people to make himself feel powerful. He helped them become better. That was true leadership. By midday, the restaurant was full. The kitchen worked smoothly, and the waiters moved in perfect rhythm. Marcus decided to hold a small gathering in the afternoon to celebrate the reopening. He invited the staff and a few regular customers to join. When the time came, he stood near the center of the room. The staff gathered around, forming a half circle. The customers stayed seated, curious to listen. Marcus raised his hand slightly and began to speak. He said that the silver plate had gone through a storm, but it had survived. He said that mistakes had been made, but lessons had been learned. He reminded everyone that respect was not a rule to follow only when it was easy, but a way of living that made life better for everyone. He told them that the restaurant was now more than a business. It was a place that represented humanity's heart. In a galaxy full of countless species and cultures, the silver plate would stand as an example of what humans could achieve when they treated others with fairness. The staff listened closely, their faces glowing with pride. Some had tears in their eyes. Marcus looked at them and said that they were not just workers. They were ambassadors of humanity. Every time they smiled at a guest, they showed what humans were capable of: kindness, strength, and unity. He then announced a small bonus for everyone who had stayed through the change. The workers cheered and clapped, and the customers joined them. The sound of joy filled the restaurant again, but this time it was pure and honest. Later, as the day ended and the guests began to leave, Marcus stood by the door, greeting each person as they walked out. Some thanked him for the good food, others for the warm service. A young alien child gave him a small flower from her home planet. Marcus took it gently and smiled. He placed it on the counter beside the register as a reminder of what the place stood for. When the last guest left, the staff stayed behind to clean. Marcus helped them move chairs and wipe tables, even though they told him he didn't have to. He said that leadership began with example. They all laughed and worked together until the room sparkled. When the lights dimmed and the night grew quiet, Marcus walked to the window. Orion City glowed beneath the stars. Ships moved in long trails of light, and the city pulsed with life. He felt a deep sense of peace. He thought about how everything had started. A simple meal, a rude act, and a moment of silence that changed everything. From that one moment came growth, learning, and transformation. Marcus realized that sometimes the smallest actions carried the biggest lessons. He turned around and saw his staff gathered behind him. Lena, Thomas, and the others stood proudly, waiting for his final words. Marcus smiled and said that the future was now in their hands. He told them to keep serving with honesty and to treat every guest with the same care they showed today. They nodded with determination. As he walked out into the night, the cool breeze of the city brushed against his face. He looked up at the stars and thought about humanity's place among them. He believed that if people could learn to respect each other, then there was no limit to what they could achieve. Behind him, the silver plate shone softly under the neon lights. Its doors closed for the night, but its heart full of warmth. It was no longer just a restaurant. It was a symbol of what humanity could be, strong, kind, and fair. And so, the man who once had his change thrown on the floor left the place he now owned, not as a symbol of wealth, but as a reminder that true power lies in respect. The city continued to move, the stars continued to shine, and the silver plate continued to serve. Not just food, but the spirit of humanity.